Welcome to the Coppreneur Path Podcast.
Welcome to the show that is all about the path from cop to coppreneur. I'm your host, Adam Wills. With this podcast, I'm going to help equip you for your own post-law enforcement entrepreneurial journey with lessons learned from my experience growing a successful post-Leo business. You'll also get to hear from fellow coppreneurs and experts in business and marketing whose advice will give you an edge against the competition. You are in the right place, so let's get after it. Welcome back for another awesome episode of the Coppreneur Path podcast. This morning, I have Wesley Henderson with me from Drafted Legal. But before we get into that, guys, you know that I value your feedback. I value the reviews that you share, and I love it when I see new reviews come in about the podcast. And of course, I love to be able to share those on the air and kind of give a shout out to those that leave those reviews. So I've got one review here to share that just came in last week. It's from Dr. Sitna, and he gave 5 stars for the podcast. He says, "You have to listen. If you are a current LEO or retired LEO with a side hustle, this podcast is a must. From marketing, web design, etc., Adam brings on excellent guests who've been down the road of hard knocks and success. Those guests share their experiences to your benefit and success. I wish I would have found this podcast earlier in my Leo to CEO journey." Dr. Sitna, thank you so much for that awesome review. And guys, again, don't forget, if you've been listening to the podcast and you'd like to leave a review as well, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps other coppreneurs find the show. All you need to do is go to leo2ceo.com/podcast-review, and that will take you directly to where you need to go to leave a review on your favorite podcast listening app. All right, so Wesley Henderson. We've got Wesley Henderson here with us today, as I mentioned, from Drafted Legal. Now, before anybody gives me a hard time about inviting an attorney onto the show, this is one of the good ones, guys. This is one of the good guys. So Wesley Henderson is he likes to help entrepreneurs, and he loves cops and wants to help out you guys as well, understand some of the nuances to starting a business from the legal perspective, how to form your business, what the different entities mean. We're going to get into a lot of that on the show today, but he's also going to talk a bit about his company, Drafted Legal, and some really neat opportunities that they have in order to help the starting entrepreneur get up and running with your business and get legal things in place so that you're protected. So, Wesley, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I will say my first cousin's a police officer in Walterboro, which is where I grew up. So I certainly have the utmost respect for how difficult and challenging and hopefully sometimes rewarding that profession can be. I know this time is probably as difficult as ever and probably has people looking around for other opportunities at times. Side hustle businesses are a good way to start. And so hopefully I can give you some good, straightforward information to make that a little bit easier to contemplate as you look around and maybe already have an idea for just a side extra income or just a passion project or even a full-time transition. But hopefully this will be nice, helpful for you.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there out of the gate, Wesley. Right now, it just seems like more than ever, there are cops looking for other opportunities, right? Not only those that are pre-retirement, like, you know, they don't have enough years in yet to retire, but a lot of the veteran cops on the job right now that have enough years in for retirement, they're leaving. They're not sticking around. They're not choosing to continue pulling it through. There's just a lot of people leaving law enforcement, and we don't need to get into the political position on all of that today for this episode. But you're right. This is a time where there's a lot of challenges in law enforcement, and that is causing a lot of cops to at least look at what other opportunities there are out there and try to understand how to use their skills that they've gained in their law enforcement career to benefit them either in the private sector or as an entrepreneur. And so I'm excited to have you on because I think this is a really unique opportunity to present to people. And so why don't you go ahead and just let us know what Drafted Legal is all about? What is it that you guys are offering, and how can entrepreneurs leverage that?
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, just kind of touching on what you're saying about people looking around. There are a lot of challenges, and sometimes things are feeling more going backwards or more difficult right now in some ways for police officers. I'd imagine the job's difficult. But if you look at these other opportunities, there's kind of never been a time with the opportunities that you have because of some of the things that the internet brings. And when I talk
Oh
about
yeah.
going backwards, sometimes, I have 3 young boys, and we got, like cell phones. I almost feel like they're actually a step backwards, but then I remind myself that
Yeah.
just in terms of their distraction and, so I feel like all this world of technology kind of is almost,
Yeah.
uh,
Facebook.
a net
Uh,
negative. But then
yeah.
I do remind myself, when, especially like for your audience, the ability to start a business is easier now than ever. Like
Hmm.
we're on this video software that is, I'm not familiar, it's pretty simple. You can outsource VAs. You can I'll talk about my legal product that streamlines it compared to hiring a lawyer for thousands of dollars. There's all these software as a service. And so you do have the ability also to connect with audiences you've never been able to connect with. So even take a look at your podcast, you're able to connect with police officers from, all around the country and potentially the world. Whereas
Yeah.
not that long ago, is just the coffee shop, in your town, or maybe traveling on a book tour or something like that. So, my view, I see a lot of the negatives just largely because I'm looking at my young kids and trying to figure out how to, control technology and some of these new, toys. But I do remind myself it does present a lot of excellent opportunity as well. So,
Yeah. It's
kind of
definitely a
leads me
double-edged sword.
to draft it, as we basically tried to shortcut legal services for entrepreneurs. I run a full service law firm with my brother. I do business work entirely. We've got 4 lawyers here. We started at the end of 2014. So, our pitch is, I was doing employment and insurance defense work at the time. Left the big, they call it big law, these big law firms. It was kind of soul sucking for me. It just wasn't finding my passion there. I tell people, really, I felt like I had an actual career change, even though I just, went from being a lawyer to still being a lawyer. It was that big of a difference in terms of my enjoyment out that I got out of it. And I, was able to kind of dive into areas that I felt rewarding and that I just naturally enjoy, which is the business and working with business owners. So as part of this sort of journey, we've grown a good bit and worked very hard at setting up our culture at our firm and have a good pace. But along that way, my brother has his 4th kid coming. I have my 3rd, and so I have 3. We used to do a lot of kind of pro bono, helping people just start up. Hey, here's the LLC you need. Here's the contracts you need. 20-minute conversation, templates, that sort of stuff, just because we like it. But as our days shrink and our duties jump up and our kids get, our ability to do that has shrunk, and we've kind of turned it into what we think is more of an ability to do that by launching this separate company that streamlines it. And it's designed just for business owners. It's for the side hustle, for the new business. The idea is you don't particularly, unless you're well capitalized, got a lot of money to spend, want to go spend, $2 or $3 or $4,000 just to get legal stuff for a business you might not know is going to work. And I find that's sympathetic to me. I hear that. So we created these kind of prepackaged legal. I'm not your lawyer, all those disclaimers. But I mean, that it's just templates and LLCs, and it's a package to say, all right, I'm covered with the basics. Once I start making money, I'll go to a lawyer in a couple of years. I got something really to protect. I'll dive in, but I'll be in a good place no matter what, a couple of years from now, if I don't even think about it again. So that's the idea of it, is kind of shortcut that whole process. Not going to give you 40 different options. It's just going to be do this, this, and this, and then look up and you'll be okay.
Yeah. I love that concept because, I feel like along the path of entrepreneurship, there are several roadblocks along the way that normally trip people up, right? And especially in those early stages. And in those roadblocks, they're not actually significant roadblocks that need to trip you up. They just seem big, Okay. They seem like big mountains to scale. And one of those is like setting up your accounts, right? Your accounting practices and your bookkeeping. But another one of those is the actual legal formation of your business. And I think people find that to be scary. And they when they start to research it, when they recognize that that's the obvious next step to starting their business is creating a legal formation of it, they start to do the Google searching, and then you get hit with all these terms that it's almost like insider language that you don't really understand if you're not in the world of business already. You don't have an MBA, and you're like, and I think it trips people up. They stop, they get overwhelmed because they're like, well, I don't know. Should I be a sole proprietor? Should I be an LLC? Am I an S-Corp? Is this a partnership? What do I have to do if I'm a partner? Right. Like, so there's all these things. And I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that stop there because they just think, I don't know how to do this and I can't afford to hire an attorney. And so I love this idea of you offering that guidance on what path to go down based upon their circumstances, and then giving them these templates that are a lot cheaper than hiring an attorney just to get them started. Like you said, get that cash flow coming in, make them in the black, put them in the black, get them cash flow positive to a point where they're making revenue, and then look at hiring an attorney in order to refine things. So I guess since I threw it out there, why don't we start with the nuances of the different types of businesses, and how do you determine what to form your business as? Am I a sole proprietorship, an LLC, and so forth? What is the metric for that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is going to be one of the few times you're going to get as straightforward of an answer from a lawyer as you're going to get. And it'll be just get an LLC and don't think anything else about it. But I'll explain a little bit why and some of the other entities. And there are reasons to go off of that, but you're never going to be in a bad place with an LLC. So if I'm giving a blanket recommendation, I feel very comfortable with everyone who's starting a side hustle LLC. And you looking up, you might shift off of that, but you can always move to a corporation from an LLC. Going the other way around, it's usually you got to liquidate. It's more difficult. But here's the basics of it. A sole proprietor, that means you just start selling lemonade, at the front of your driveway. Didn't file anything, no tax, nothing. You're just trying to go make money. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, it comes with a cost, is that any harm you cause to somebody, any debt you take out, there's no liability shield. You don't get this wonderful liability shield that the LLC gives. So the LLC, in comparison, you basically get to choose what you're investing, how much you're risking. No different than however much you put in your retirement account or invest in a stock market. Same thing with this business. You're choosing what's at risk. So if you put $5,000 in the bank account, or you've made $5,000 and it's there, that's really your risk. So it creates this liability shield. It's not the end all be all. If you're running your business and punch someone in the face, well, that's an intentional tort and it kind of trumps it. But if you're in good faith, and someone, let's say at my law office, slips and injures their head, that's an LLC issue. That's not a me individually issue. So that's what you're trying to do, is create this separate business. And so when you do this LLC, I think one of the, great side effects, I guess, in a positive way, is that there's kind of a mindset shift that you see that happens as well. So it's, all right, I've been thinking about this idea, writing ideas down, listening to podcasts, It's kind of it's go time moment. It's kind of the putting the uniform moment on. It's, all right, we're going to do it. And you go get this LLC and you kind of take yourself a little bit more seriously. I think it presents more professionally, when people ask about the templates. I think that, you've got an LLC, you've got these professional looking templates. There's a saying in business that goes around, says how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I don't know if I carry that to the end of the earth, but there is something to it, in that you're showing like, hey, this is how much I care about this business. And this is the type of service that you're going to get. It's very professionally done. And, we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So I think there's a mental shift and a professionalism on top of the outrageously high bang for your buck on the liability shield. Again, that's like creating this separate business that you're running, but you're doing everything on behalf of the business. That's the idea. It's like you're the agent of the business.
Yeah, I heard a saying the other day, and it's that small hinges swing big doors, right? And that just means that sometimes we just need to do small things to make bigger impacts. And I think that applies in this case because, really, when it comes down to it, it's not that hard to file an LLC. It's pretty straightforward. And as long as you have the template like you're offering, it's really fill in the blanks and then filing that paperwork with your state. I mean, the fees aren't really even very expensive. So
Right.
there's really, there, in my mind, you're right. There really is no reason to. And I want to pause on the topic of liability here for a second, because I think that's really important for us to unpack even further, and maybe drive home a little bit with the audience here, because so many copreneurs, when they start their own businesses, so many of them are going into, they're instructors and trainers. They're starting training businesses, right? And they're training other law enforcement on various different skills, which is obviously a high risk area, right? And I know so many personally, I know so many copreneurs that have their own training businesses that are running them as sole proprietors. And I feel like they're just putting themselves out there for, they're asking for it, right? If they give bad advice and somebody comes back and pulls them into a lawsuit because, even if it's not bad advice and somebody just wants to claim that it is, right? That ends up turning something sideways in a use of force situation or whatever, in the real world, on the street. I feel like they're just putting themselves out there to have liability personally and get sued. And you're right, the LLC provides that cushion, and there's just really no reason not to do it.
Yeah, there's going to be a big comfort. So the way that lawsuits work is anybody can sue anybody for any reason. And if there's an injury and a plaintiff's lawyer gets a hold of it, they're going to add anybody under the sun that they can, because they're just searching for as much money as they can get. And that's just the way it's going to happen. So what you want to be able to do is have an intact LLC, which has like your operating agreement. You're signing on behalf of the LLC. There's just a few things, you have a separate bank account. And we explain all that stuff on our program on how to do it. But it's really simple. It's just keeping it separate so that if you did get sued, you're still sleeping at night knowing, well, at worst, it's the LLC and what's in that bank account. It's not, nobody's looking into my savings account or my personal nest egg and all that sort of stuff. Another good place for it is shopping just some inexpensive, liability insurance. It's kind of another wave there. One other thing I want to touch on, you mentioned S-Corp just quickly. You might have people seeing S-Corp LLC. That's a bit of a misnomer. This is why I said just go with the LLC. You're going to see, but you'll see people out there trying to convince you to file something in Delaware or do some sort of corporation. All this stuff is way more expensive than you need to do. You need to just do a home state LLC. An S-Corp is actually a tax filing. It's an S election. So you can be an LLC that files as an S. So it's like,
right.
You would go to an accountant who files a one-page document that will save you some taxes. So it's usually recommended, but it's not an either or. It's a and. You can be an LLC and an S elect. It's a added thing. And briefly on, just for people putzing around the internet, somebody says go to Delaware or Wyoming or Nevada, and those states do have good reputation for good laws, but they usually protect shareholders for corporations and things like that. You still, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. If I got an LLC in Wyoming, I still would have to file in the state of South Carolina. So it's like you're just doing double the work. And
Right.
It's rarely, this would be more of a nuanced answer for someone. If you were like a corporation raising money, yeah, you'd have to look at it because that's what investors want. But, if you're running, training, instruction, selling product, that sort of stuff, I mentioned just so you don't get sidetracked by a sales pitch online to go file something you don't need to.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. If we could shift gears just a little bit, one of the other things that I know I personally got stuck in the weeds on when starting my own business was my business name, and it's actually kind of a funny story because when I started my business, I had it set in my mind, oh, this is the name that I want, right? And so I didn't really do any research. I just started my business and started operating under that name. Well, when I went to go actually file all of my paperwork, I found out that there was actually somebody else using the same exact business name in my state, providing the same exact type of services I was. And they had been doing it for 8 years. And so it was this huge setback for me because all of a sudden I was like, well, crap. Now everything I've put in and invested into using that name, setting up all of my paperwork and my invoicing system and my creating a logo and all of this, registering domains and setting up a website. And I'm like, now I've got to start over from square one. And so how can other entrepreneurs avoid that? How do we find out? Where can we search to find if our business name that we want to use is already being used or not? And how do we protect that when we move forward with it?
Very sympathetic to that situation. I've seen it a few times with clients, and it'll be even as small as a one-person shop. We had a dispute here in Charleston where there were two one-person shops doing home inspections. Same name, just sort of. So it can be a small world. And then also, as we were creating Drafted Legal, we went through a couple names, obviously knowing what to look out for. But you do fall in love with a name, and then it kind of is you talk to your wife, you start to use it, and you kind of fall in love with it, and it can be hard to part from it. What I would encourage people to do is not fall in love with any of them until you search through various places. The first is the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and I have a checklist I can put on, maybe like a link you can put in the show notes or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And it's just 3 or 4 places. So it's the USPTO.gov, and there's a trademark search. So you'll throw your name in there. If it's in there and someone's in the same industry, you're just going to have to find a new name. It's just the way it is. They own it. You also want to look, for domains, hashtags, like any usage of it. So the trademark on that website that's who owns that trademark name. But then people can acquire other rights even if they haven't filed the trademark. So you want to stay far away from any usage in the same industry. Now, if somebody's doing something different, all the tests are based on, is a consumer confused from one business to another? So somebody's selling baked goods and you're doing martial arts instructions or, use of force training or whatever. That's not going to be a problem. So you don't have to think too hard about it. But if it is a similar field, I always encourage people, there are bad names, but a good name doesn't make a good business. It's really just go get a decent name and run it really well and provide a great service. Marketers might disagree with that, but that,
I actually agree with you. I tell all my coaching clients all the time that are stuck on this sort of thing or are questioning, should I change my business name because I'm shifting my direction? And I tell everybody the name really doesn't matter, right? Once you build a reputation, it doesn't really matter what the name is. People can call you Red Coffee Mug, and it really doesn't matter. Obviously you want to have a cool name that's recognizable and applicable to what you're doing, but you don't need to put as much emphasis on it as your gut tells you that it wants to.
Yeah. Sometimes I think it's more fun, and it can sometimes be like procrastinate, not ready to really take the leap, just kind of fiddling with the fun part, the logo and the name. So just pick a name and go.
Yeah. Cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit, as far as the types of templates you have on Drafted Legal, what is somebody going to see when they actually go there? What's available to them? And I got to ask just bluntly up front, because there are, obviously, as you and I know, there are other people in this space, right? So like everybody thinks of LegalZoom, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, hey, LegalZoom, that's where I'm going to go, right? So what makes what you're providing different than LegalZoom?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because if I can't answer that, we really shouldn't have a service. And there's a couple of things I think separate us. One would be just the sheer customer service. So we get to see kind of, unfortunately, the back end of some of the LegalZoom. So the customer service, we make sure that we give instruction. We do video instructions with all our videos, and then we're very available to answer questions. We're not their lawyer, we have a separate law firm, but we want people to feel comfortable that they're in the right direction, not just totally like out there by themselves. The other thing is just kind of the fact that we're designed solely for business owners, and most of the agreements we've drafted that are up there started off with an actual client. So they're really truly in the industry. So they're tailored to that actual industry. So like if you're a pet walker, it's going to talk about liability from a pet needing to go to the vet, and making sure the owner pays for that, or biting someone. If you're a consultant or a graphic designer, it's going to talk about intellectual property and those sort of things. Whereas we've seen some of the other ones in the past kind of have, different names at the top, but really just a generic set of clauses underneath. So I think those are some of the, the big differences. We also set out like a full package if you're in some of the industries that we have out there. So instead of guessing what you need, if you get the full bundle, we'll tell you what you need. It's like, hey, you need these 7 documents, and it'll include your website terms and your privacy policy, a non-disclosure, and tells you exactly, how to use those. And I'd say the last thing is that, legal. So we file all of our LLCs within 7 days, and LegalZoom will, you start, or, I don't mean to pick on them, but they're kind of, the big head honcho, and it's, it'll get filed within 30 days, and then it's an upsell for quicker, and then it's another upsell. And then they try to, rope you into this registered agent, which is $250. Everybody likes that subscription model.
They're just creating
and
more
it's a total
confusion.
bogus thing to do for 99% of companies. It's, like there's no, if you're the face of your business, you could just save, in 4 years, that's $1,000. So, we don't do any of the upsell. We're just trying to genuinely make sure that business owners are empowered to know what their documents say so that they use them, and know how to protect themselves, and also know how to create a fair agreement. That's the whole point. And that's what creates good business relationships, is when you have a good, straightforward, fair agreement. And then if someone doesn't do what they're supposed to, we've got protocols to call them on it. But it's not about sneaking this or that in there. It's about, hey, what's our handshake deal? Taking it back to the old handshake, and just setting it up where you can enforce that handshake. And also we know what was meant in that handshake. So sometimes people get a little squirrely when you had a phone call, and then there's a text message, and then there's an email. So we try to encourage people to get it all in this one document, set it up so you can put it in there, so that if someone starts to balk on payment or the time when something's due, or any other, anything that was material to the deal, then you say, look, this is, it was in here. This is, this is what you agreed to. And 9 times out of 10, they'll, comply.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing all that up, Wesley. It's funny that you mention it, because your agreement, like you said, can, in fact, it sets the tone for your relationship with your customer or your client. Right. I actually get comments from my clients on my agreement that I have them sign, because when I had my attorney drafted, I said, hey, I want this to be lighthearted, and I actually want to have fun with it. And so we tried to eliminate as much legal jargon as we could. And we kind of cracked some jokes throughout that agreement. Like in the end, we talked about how this is just like a parking ticket. You can't transfer it to anybody else. It's just all about you, right? And so we kind of had a little bit of fun with it. But most importantly, what everybody comments on is that we have this section spelled out that says, this is not just about protecting us; it's about protecting you. And here's what we assure that we can provide you. And if we fall short of that, then we need you to call us to task on it. Right. And so I've had people comment on that and say that they appreciated that, because it felt like it wasn't just a one-sided thing. And so you're absolutely right. That tone of an agreement is important to put in place. So
yeah, I think that's excellent. Just one other, just to touch on that, is I think people are a little sour on terms because they're used to, like Apple giving you their 100 million pages of terms of service. And it just is like, it is what it is. You just got to deal with it. But in real, the rest of our real life, this business to business stuff, it is about an actual building a trusting relationship. I'm signing up for things. You're signing up for things. And a bad one-sided agreement, I tell my clients this all the time. I say, you want a good, fair agreement that's a good win for you. Don't get me wrong. But it also works for them, or else they're going to figure out how to ruin it, by doing a bad job or whatever, maybe not illegally, but they're not going to, they're going to sabotage it. So you want something that works and is fair so that you've got a good relationship. And then, you know what, they refer someone else to you, and then it keeps going from there. So I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah. Well, I want to encourage everybody that's listening to the show to go check out Drafted Legal. And you can just go to straight to draftedlegal.com and check that out. Or what you could do, and I would implore you to do, is use our link, leo2ceo.com/drafted legal. And that'll take you to the same place. And then you can use a coupon code that Wesley set up just for you guys, just for listeners of the show. And you just use coupon code LEO, the number 2 CEO, and that'll get you 10% off your order. And hey, you know what? Just in the interest of disclosure, guys, that is an affiliate link. I do get a little bit of a commission from Wesley for that. But as you guys know, I don't run ads on this show. I have zero monetization strategy actually for this show. And so, I do appreciate those when you use the affiliate links that I share here on the show, because that just helps me continue to pay for my time and energy and the actual money that goes into bringing this podcast to you guys and putting out this material. So I do appreciate that. So again, you can go to leo2ceo.com/drafted legal and use coupon code LEO2CEO to get 10% off. Wesley, do you have any closing thoughts for us before we head out?
No, I'd say thank you for having me, and best of luck to your audience. I encourage people to kind of dive in. I've been through all this business stuff before. We started our own law firm, started this company. I run a nonprofit. I know it's a little, more approachable for me, but hopefully Drafted Legal will make you feel that same way, is that it's empowering and you're able to just follow the steps laid out and feel good about it and go create a passion project or whatever this business means for you, whether it's increased freedom or financial resources or whatever. So best of luck to you. They're great journeys to go on, these business, business itches, I think.
Yeah, it comes with its challenges, but it's rewarding and it's a lot of fun all at the same time. So
yeah, I agree.
You're absolutely right. And guys, I want you to keep an eye out on things here, because as some of you have heard me talk about, we're working on some business kits, if you will, some business starter kits for LEO to CEO community members that join to kind of get some stuff to start off with, like proposals and templates for different things to get you started in your business, as well as the transition course that will be coming out here pretty soon, available to everybody. And Wesley and I have chatted about the possibility of collaborating on some of those things to bring him and offer some stuff to you guys, as well as potentially some stuff as part of that. So keep an eye out for that coming in the near future, and we'll go from there. Wesley, it's great having you on, and we'll be hearing more from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam.
Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end of the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review at leo2ceo.com/podcast-review, or in your preferred podcast listening app. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other copreneurs like yourself find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to leo2ceo.com, click on podcast, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.